Hey, welcome back, Phil and Volunteer Ambulance Corps. This is John Barr again. This time, we're going to talk a little bit about disaster response in America and how it works. So let's take a few minutes to read the usual disclaimer. I do want to add one extra thing this time. What I'm telling you today is my own opinion and does not reflect that of the United States government, Department of Health and Human Services, or National Disaster Medical System. All right, so I'm going to give you a basic overview of national disaster response in the United States and then talk a little bit more specifically about the National Disaster Medical System. So, disaster response in America. Some of you may have heard of the National Response Framework, which was written in 2002. It's basically a guide to how our nation responds to public health and other major emergencies. It builds on the principles in the National Incident Management System, aka NIMS, which you all should be well familiar with. It contains emergency support functions and the emergency support annexes. And so what are those? So these are the emergency support functions, often referred to as ESFs. Now, we generally fall under ESF number 8, Public Health and Medical Services. And when I do DMAT work on a disaster medical assistance team, that's where I fall. Although, as you guys know, pre-hospital medicine is a complex interplay between medical but also law enforcement, so ESF 13, public safety and security, as well as firefighting, ESF 4, as well as sometimes search and rescue, ESF 9 or ESF 10 for hazmat response. So a lot of different emergency support functions, but we are primarily focused on the medical one, ESF 8. Now, how does this work? So the National Disaster Medical System is nested under ASPR, the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, which is under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So that's how it kind of fits within the federal government at a national level. Now, this sometimes confuses people because there is another disaster-related arm under the Department of Homeland Security, and that's FEMA, and NDMS is not the same as FEMA. I'm going to be focusing on NDMS today because that's what I know. So, NDMS, what is it? Basically, it's a way of supporting local assets, so state, local, tribal, territorial authorities in disasters and emergency, as well as supporting federal agencies during national security special events. When push comes to shove, we could also support the military or the VA if their capacity exceeds their ability to care for combat casualties. Now, what are the types of support a NDMS can provide? So one is a disaster medical assistance team. I'm a part of one of those. There are also disaster mortuary response teams to help with fatality management, as well as trauma and critical care teams, which add surgical capability, information centers, as well as veterinary response teams. So what is a DMAT team? It's basically a team of multiple medical professionals and paraprofessionals who help during public health emergencies and national special events. So this is me giving a briefing to my team during one of our recent missions. And in this photo are paramedics, nurses, pharmacists, safety officer, and myself, physician. What is the composition of a DMAT team? So these are all the people who are on DMAT teams. You'll notice that paramedics are on this list and they play a key role. Some of you might be wondering if as an EMT, if you could join a disaster medical assistance team. Right now, the minimum level of training you would need to be on a DMAT team clinically is as a paramedic. However, you'll notice on this list are safety specialists, logistics specialists, information technologists, and communication administrative specialists. Many of our other specialists are EMTs. For example, our logisticians, the logistics specialists, often are EMTs because they need to understand how medical equipment works, and they need to be able to do that. So there are ways at the EMT basic level where you could still get involved, and or if some of you are also paramedics, you can get involved at that level. So what types of missions does the disaster medical assistance team perform? So here's a list of them. Some of them are obvious, like emergency care. Emergency department decompression means helping offload the volume at a hospital if it's overwhelmed. We could also, though, support inpatient care or help move people from point A to point B, right? Some of the other things on this list that might be a little more unusual you might think of are mass prophylaxis, so doing vaccination operations, and also we can provide medical shelters as well for people with special needs. So I hope that gives you a little brief overview of how disaster response in America works. To recap, the National Disaster Medical System is part of ASPR, which is part of Health and Human Services. And within NDMS, there are a number of different teams, including disaster medical assistance teams, who can do a number of different missions if requested by local authorities to come and respond. And this is something you can get involved with as an EMT if you're interested in becoming a logistics specialist or another specialist, or if you are a nurse or a paramedic or another type of clinician, you can also get involved in that way. So if you're interested in something like that, don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you found this interesting. Stay safe out there and see you on the next one.